spring, but it's starting to feel very spring-like. So I thought I'd go out for a little walk around the property, talk about some of my plans for the upcoming season, and show you how things survived the winter. So let's go for a walk. So the chickens did pretty well this winter once I figured out that I need to shovel their run out for them. They were okay being stuck in the coop, but that's not the kind of life I want for them. So once I started shoveling their run out for them, they still weren't coming out every day, but they were coming out pretty regularly. Now that things have started thawing out, it's a muddy mess back here, and chickens don't like to have their feet wet. They'll stop laying if their feet are wet too much. So I got a bale of straw for them, and they've been over the moon kicking that around the yard. And I've got another one that I'll spread out in a couple of days once this all starts getting pounded into the ground. But they started right away digging through it, looking for seeds and spreading it around. So that's worked out well. And it's warm enough today. It's not as warm as it was yesterday. Yesterday was in the 60s. Today it's almost 40. But they made a break for the yard while I was feeding them this morning. And I figured, let them have a day out in the yard. So they're kind of free ranging today, but I'll have them back in the yard tomorrow. Now, one of the challenges I had this winter is their food lives in the shed down there, but there's kind of a hill coming up to the coop, and trying to get those heavy bags of feed up that hill I keep them in the silver buckets there by the door to feed them on a regular basis. Oh, hello. No. Henry's checking me out. He's like, who are you talking to? So anyway, trying to bring those heavy bags or the cans full of feed up to the yard here was really hard this winter. So I'm thinking I need to move the chicken coop down parallel to the big shed so that it's easy for me to get back and forth with feed and supplies for them. My only problem with that is then that puts the back of the coop to the sun, which is going to put a lot of shade in the yard. So I might instead do it this way along the stream so that the door is still facing that shed, but it's at least going to get sunlight on the front of the coop halfway through the day, if not the whole day. So I'm still thinking about that. I've got to reach out to my shed guy and find out. He actually had a bad accident last year, so I'm not sure if he's even doing shed moves this year, and how much that would cost. So I'm not planning to do a whole lot with the chicken run this year. I am going to put some new roosts in for them instead of the ladders, just to give them a little more space, but that will happen. I've ordered a whole bunch of supplies, and I'll talk to you about each of those projects as we come to them. Those supplies are coming next week, so in the coming weeks we'll put those new roosts in and see how that does for giving them a little more space. the garden has got months to go before I'm doing much work out here. It's just, even though the snow is mostly gone, it's just the soil is too wet. So I need that to dry out a bit before I start mucking about with it. You can see the leeks and Brussels sprouts that I left in the garden are mush. The same with the couple of cabbages that I left. The argument that you can winter over some vegetables in the garden doesn't really apply in this neck of the woods. If I had cold frames and high tunnels, that would probably be a different story. But for what I have set up right now, that just doesn't work. But that's fine. As you saw, I've got the seeds going, and as stuff germinates, I'll start moving it out into the greenhouse. The onions will probably be the first things to come out here, just because they can tolerate colder temperatures. So even if it's not dropping below freezing at night, I could still have those out here. And then I think I talked briefly about the plan to expand the garden, and that's going to be here. So that's going to go out about 35 feet, and then it'll be 40 feet from there to like halfway down the fence there, probably about there, centered on the door to the greenhouse. So I'll be able to come out and straight into paths, and then there'll be 4 beds by 4 rows. 3 rows. So that'll give me 12 more beds for, like I said, the crops that I don't have to pay a lot of attention to. Again, I can't get that done right now. The soil is too wet. I'm looking to reach out to my guy, hopefully the guy that did the tilling for this last year will be able to come back and do it this year. And so I'm looking to do that mid-April. Hopefully by then things will start to be dry. End of April, mid-April to the end of April. Can get that all turned, and then get the boys to help me mulch the paths, so that'll go a lot faster this year, and hopefully make that process not take months and months like it did last year. As I suspected, I'm 99% sure both hives are dead. I take full responsibility for that, just because of issues I had in the fall as an inexperienced beekeeper. But we are hearing nationwide there is a much higher dead out rate this year than we've seen in previous years. The current numbers we're hearing is about 63%, which for professional beekeepers in the previous year was about 47%. So this was a really bad year for everybody. So my plan for this, I am committed to raising bees for at least 3 years before I give up on beekeeping. First year's always the hardest. So now at least even though I've got the dead out, I am now in a situation where it'd be really easy for me to create a new bee yard, mulch it down really good so that I don't have grass growing up in it like I did last year, which makes it really hard to get in and out of. Make sure that the hives aren't set up so that I'm in the bee's flight path while I'm trying to work. That was another issue that I was having last year, because to work in this front hive, I had to stand in front of the flight path to the back hive. So they were already agitated by the time I got to them. And even if I went to them first, then they're agitated, and then I'm standing in their way, so they're going to be more eager to take a shot at me. So I'm going to improve that situation. These stands that I built last year, obviously, I am not a carpenter, and these stands did not work for me. The cinder blocks seem to be working best, so I'm going to switch to a cinder block system. And my friend Mike has a really good idea for a working block setup, so I'm going to incorporate that. So we'll be, over the next couple of months, working on resetting the bee yard so that that's more accessible for me and better for the bees. It's hard to tell how the fruit trees have done. There's not really any buds on anything, so we just kind of have to wait and see. Some of the shrubs that I put in do have buds on them, so again, we'll wait and see how those look. My biggest concern was voles, because I have caught a couple of voles out here in the past, and they will chew the bark around the base of your fruit trees, and that will end up killing your fruit trees. I don't see a lot of vole tracks out here like I see up at the house. At the house, it looks like they're digging mazes in the lawn. The only one I see here is this, and this patch, as far as I know, doesn't have anything growing in it right now, even though I've got the cage there. So that may be a good sign that I'm not going to have to deal with a lot of vole damage this year. So that's good. The almonds that I put in last year, it's hard to tell. Again, I didn't cage them, so I'm not sure how they managed. I know there were deer out this way. Josh got a couple of pictures of deer over by the beehives over the course of the winter. So we'll see what that looks like. Also, now that everything is flat, you can kind of see this almost floodplain I have down here that I can't really do a whole lot from. We've got that structure there is runoff from the road and from the other side of the road that comes down here, and then there's not quite a dug stream coming from there that brings water from the other field down here and down to the pond. Ideally, what I'd really like to do is dig a creek and give the water someplace to go and then get down into the pond. But that, because of angles and elevations is something I'm hesitant to take on myself. I would definitely want to get some good advice on how to do that. But that would be nice if I could eventually do that and then put a bridge somewhere over here to the other side of the pasture, so then I could do a whole circuit around the pond instead of having to be really careful coming through here. Even in the summer, it's fairly damp and muddy in there, so I wouldn't necessarily want to go in there. I'm not going to go over today, but it looks like the hardwoods that we put in the fall are doing okay, but we'll check on them as we get closer to the season. One thing I do still want to do in the next month or so is cut down one of these willows right to the ground in a technique that's called coppicing. I think I've talked about it before, but if I haven't, coppicing is a practice of cutting certain trees right down to the ground so that it will actually trigger them to send up new growth, and then you can do that consistently over a period of time to have resources, whether it's firewood, whether it's weaving and building materials. And that's what I want to test out with these. I want to cut those down, this one probably to start with, and test it out. And then I can use that wood to make a fence along the front of the front yard to kind of divide it up, the garden area from the road area where I can't really do anything because of the way the plows come through in the winter. So I want to do that to this one and one down in the lower pasture to get enough resources to start building those fences. But so I just have to get my chainsaw out here and do it. The hill here is basically intended to be my wildflower meadow. I don't want to mow it. My mower won't go on it because of the steepness of the hillside. And because I see it from the windows in the house, I just would like to have it be something pretty. So I've been just throwing out here random flower seeds that I have. I know last year I threw out a bunch of calendula. I just had a couple of wildflower seed packets that I threw out here the other day. And if we keep the dogs out of it, I'm just going to leave this all be and see what comes up over the next couple of years. A lot of those wildflower seeds are annuals, but they're self-seeding annuals. So if they come up, they will continue to reseed and come up year over year. So that will make that pretty. The garden orchard I'm still waiting to see how these trees are doing. But what I'm really kind of doing is I want to leave a space between this side and this side, so that if I decide for one reason or another I want to put a drive down, I can put some kind of a bridge here and have a drive come through here. Now, whether that's to facilitate bringing resources in for the garden, or if I decide to put a farm stand here in the front pasture, or God forbid we put a tiny house here for one of the kids to come and live here, all of that would be facilitated by that. So what I'm going to do with these this year is I'm going to start trying to connect the trees. I do have a replacement apple tree coming for this one here that broke off last year. So I'll have this apple tree and that apple tree, and I think that's a blueberry bush there. But I'm going to try and cover all the grass in between those, mulch it up really good, and then start planting flower bulbs, spreading vegetables, maybe some strawberries, walking onions, things like that in there, to start building those up as a permaculture fruit tree guild. And then those will require less maintenance. I won't have to do the whirligig mowing that I was doing last year, and that'll give us like 2 islands, and I can bring those forward as I want to develop those. So we'll have this one here and that one there. The grapes, I'm not sure how the grapes have done. My original plan was to run the grape arbor all the way along the road here, but if I'm going to put a driveway there, this is as far as I want that grape arbor to go. So I may just be leaving the grapes for this year and just focus on the 7 plants that I have so far, and we'll see what happens with those over the next couple of years. And then if I want to, I can continue to expand it from there. What do you guys think you're doing? Do me a favor, go in the garden. Go dig up some of the garden beds. The front yard garden is also going to get some work this year. I have ordered supplies to add 2 3-by-10-foot beds on that side and on this side, running the length of the bed. So that's kind of going to frame these boxes in, and that's primarily going to be for flowers. I want the front yard to be mostly for flowers, ornamentals, and my cooking herbs that I need to access regularly. I think I'm going to put my permanent wood pile here. I was really struggling with having the wood pile in the backyard this winter when I stack it on the porch to be able to access it during the winter. So it was fine when we didn't have snow on the ground and I could use the wagon. But as soon as the snow got too heavy or too thick for me to get the wagon through, it was really hard to bring wood up to the front porch. So I think if I have it here, it'll be a lot easier to go back and forth. It isn't necessarily ideal. I don't necessarily want to be having to look at stacked firewood, but this really is at least for the moment, the best place to put it, and I need to have 3 cords in and curing over the summer, so that's going to be where it has to go. And then, like I said when I was talking about the willow trees, I'm going to put along this edge at the top of the hill here a willow fence, just to be a demarcation of what I need to be tending. You may remember there were a couple of times last year where I ended up putting the mower over the edge, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm going to put that fence in, and I may just do a lot of mulch along it, put some good cardboard down, and then put compost and mulch down, just to be kind of an ad hoc flower bed that'll bring me out from the fence and make it easier to mow. The lower pasture, I don't plan to do a whole lot to this year. I want to see how those willows that I planted last fall do. I am going to try and coppice this willow thatch here. I'm pretty sure that's willow anyway. Either way, it needs to get coppiced and see what we can do with. And I put in a couple of mulberry trees down along the runoff from the pond, but I did it in such a hurry that I didn't mark them and I didn't fence them. So I'd like to try and find those and fence them. But otherwise, and I never did get out to do the pruning that I wanted to do on the apple trees. I might still have time to do some of that, but I don't think I really do. So I may just leave that for another year, although I'd really love to get down there and get some of the water sprouts off of some of these trees and give them a little more energy to put out their fruit next year. The big project I have to deal with this spring is the bridge. As you might remember, I made an attempt to get some work done on this in the fall, late summer, and that did not go the way I had hoped at all. So I've kind of been stuck with things the way they are for the winter. But I need a more reliable bridge here so that I can get back and forth across. So I have ordered I've ordered 4 12-foot 4x6s, 6x6s to form the base of the bridge, and those will go across just past where the existing bridge is, and then pressure treated 2x4s to go on top to be the deck that I may or may not cover with chicken wire to make it easier to get across when it's wet or when it's slippery like this. That, I'm hoping, is not going to be too hard. It'll just be getting those support braces properly level and even, so that once I screw the decking on, they'll make a nice flat surface. If I can get that done, I'm going to be really happy, because this bridge is 4 feet wide, and so is my mower. So there were a couple of times where I almost put the mower in the creek because it just was too narrow. So having that extra width is going to make that a lot more comfortable. I would really like to get this creek cleared out. The way the water has been coming down, as you can see, it's just kind of eaten through the hillside here. And I'd really like to reinforce that so that doesn't continue. There's also a lot of trash and stuff down in the creek down here. I think there's a kid's bike down there, some other stuff like that. So all of that I would really like to get cleaned out. I don't know if that's in the cards for this year, but we'll have to see where we get. It might be good to just pull it all out and just have a big bonfire here and burn it all. But we'll have to see what we get to. I can make all the plans in the world, but we only have so much time. So we're gonna cross our fingers, put it on a list on the refrigerator, and just start job by job marking it off. The other big project I have, big-ish project, is this shed. So this shed this winter, well, previously, this shed, I don't know how well you can see this. Let me come inside. This was the previous owner's chicken coop. And it's fine for that, but I wanted more chickens and I wanted them in a different place. So I got the chicken coop that I'm using. So for the winter, I've been using it for storage for the wood shavings that I've been using in the deep litter bedding for them. But what I want to do is tear out this framing and turn this into my rabbitry. After the challenges I had this winter with watering the chickens, I'm hesitant about getting any more animals, and I'm really thinking hard about what kind of infrastructure do I need, or how much work am I able to do to support having more animals. I think I can manage more rabbits, although rabbits will take a little more work than chickens will, just because I can't put out the same kinds of waters and feeders for them that I can for the chickens. So I'm kind of in a wait and see. I may be being an object lesson here. I did try to order 6 more hens off of Facebook. Americanas and Copper Morans, just 3 of each, just to kind of round out the color palette of the eggs that I'm getting. I think I may have gotten taken advantage of. So next weekend they're supposed to ship, so if I don't have them by the end of the month, I'll know I got taken advantage of. If they do show up, I will rejoice in the goodness of the human spirit, and they'll go in here for 2 weeks as quarantine, so I can make sure that they're not bringing any diseases into my flock that might wipe out my whole flock. So I'm not in a hurry to take this down. It doesn't look like it's going to be very hard to take down once I get to that point. It looks like it's just held in by a couple of nails here and then a whole bunch of staples holding the chicken wire on. But I did get, these are animal crates, dog crates, I think specifically. But I got them with the intention of using them for rabbits. So if I have the opportunity, I know there's somebody at one of the farm swaps that I like to go to, who has exactly the breed of rabbits that I would like to breed for meat animals. Now I'm not going to be able to remember. I want to say it's a California Rex mix, which are a really good meat rabbit. I also would really like to get a breeding trio of fiber rabbits, but I'm going to wait and see. Again, I need to make sure that I am capable of taking care of that many animals, and if I have the energy to do it. So that would be bees, chickens. I am definitely getting turkeys this year. I want to get 3 turkeys, possibly all to eat, but it may be 1's for eating and 2 are for breeding. So we'll wait and see on that. I can't order turkeys from a hatchery because you have to have a minimum order of 15 birds. to order from pretty much any hatchery that you can look to. And I don't need 15 turkeys. I would really like to get heritage breed turkeys, but I don't see a lot of those for sale at like the Tractor Supply, Farm Supply kinds of places. Not that I go to Tractor Supply, but we have a really nice homestead store next town over. But they're just getting bronzes and whites, and I would really like to get Narragansetts. So again, I'll see what comes up at the swap this year, and maybe I'll bring turkeys home from there. I'm also debating on ducks and geese to have up by the pond. But again, then I run into the problem of what do I do with them in the winter? They can water themselves all summer long in the pond, but as soon as the pond freezes, then I have to be providing a lot of water for them, because they not only do they need it for drinking, but they also need it for their health, for maintaining their feathers, and I think the geese need it even to eat. So I don't know if I'm ready to take that on yet. So that's what we're looking at for the season. So over the next 6 weeks or so, before we get into full garden swing, I'll be building those front beds for the garden. I'll be building the bridge, and I'll be putting the new roost bars in the chicken coop. So those are the 3 things I'm committed to doing right now. Now, my mother comes to visit for a week next week. Crow and possibly Xander are coming to visit 2 weeks after that. So I've got a lot of visitors coming, which is great because I'm getting my house clean. I also had friends down from New Hampshire last weekend, which was great. And again, it gave me a real kick in the butt to get the house clean. I don't think the house has been this clean probably since I moved in. So, but we're slowly shifting from inside projects to outside projects. I didn't get as much done inside as I wanted to this year, but I got a lot done, and there's always next winter. So now you know what you're coming back for. The videos should pick up more as I'm having more things to do. There's not a lot of time anymore to sit by the fire and knit. So I am still going to the pottery studio 3 days a week. So, and that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. But, the other big project that I have is I need to get a farm stand started. Because I've got eggs to sell, not a lot. I'm getting about six to 8 eggs a day, but that's enough to have some to sell. And as the garden starts producing, I'll have produce to put out. Heck, I could even put some of my pottery out. So, but I have to figure out what I want the farm stand to be, physically, structurally. I don't want to have just a table and a cooler, but we'll see what I can come up with. So, lots of exciting things coming, and I hope you'll come along and see it. And we're almost to spring. Next week is first day of spring. So I hope y'all stay warm and come back and see what we get up to next time. Bye.